Hi, I'm Joan Craig with Choose Joyful Health, and today I'm super excited because I'm with Jackie Marks from the Marine Stewardship Council. And as you know, in Choose Joyful Health, we're always striving to make the best choices for not only our physical health, but also the health of the whole, and looking for choices that are good for the environment and all the beings that are involved. So in all my years of studying food policy and food quality and nutrition, I still have a lot of questions about fish and seafood. So I'm super excited to welcome Jackie here today. And thank you so much for making time to talk to us.
Absolutely, Joan. It is such a pleasure to be with you here today. And I really hope that I'm able to answer questions about sustainable seafood for both you and your viewers.
Great. Well, maybe you could start by telling us more about what Marine Stewardship Council is and what you do. Give us an overview.
Absolutely. The Marine Stewardship Council is an international nonprofit organization. We were founded about 20 years ago, and we are interested in safeguarding seafood supplies for future generations. So we want to make sure that fishing can continue on for years and years and years to come, and that it's done so in a way that is sustainable and not causing harm to the environment, and making sure that fish stocks are healthy. So that's the short of it. We have a standard, and we are an organization that holds a standard for sustainable seafood that fisheries and organizations, retailers, for example, can get certified against. We'll go, I think, a little bit into that more later, but effectively, you can look for our label on seafood products, and that's how you know that it can be considered certified sustainable seafood.
Great. So that's a great overview. And I guess as a just consumer who's trying to be educated, I know that I have mostly chosen wild caught fish because of the health benefits of that. But I recognize as more and more people are choosing fish as just a healthy protein, we could be in the risk of depleting our marine environment. So could you
Absolutely.
maybe speak to some of the challenges that the marine world is facing, of marine life in our oceans, maybe overfishing, and maybe there's ones we're not even aware of?
Absolutely. And I think you really hit the nail on the head there. We have a growing population. We have people that are eating seafood for health reasons. And so unsustainable fishing is really putting a lot of pressure on the ocean. And it's threatening fish populations, ocean habitat, as well as coastal communities and coastal economies. And so our biggest challenge and our goal really is to make sure that we can continue feeding the world with seafood, and it's done in a sustainable manner. So with regards to consumers, we want consumers to be able to be part of the equation. So that's really where the MSC comes in.
Before we move on to solutions, are there any other big problems that you're addressing in your work with MSC? Like besides overfishing, does MSC address pollution and oil spills and other things like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And while the MSC does not directly directly deal with issues like that, by ensuring that we have a sound seafood or sound fish populations, and we're not creating negative impacts on the environment, we hope to be able to be a proactive solution for some of these issues. Of course, we're not directly dealing with any of them. However, we know that when the ocean ecosystem is healthy, and that can mean healthy fish stocks and healthy habitats, it has the ability to really adapt and address some of these other issues as well. So while we don't do, oil spills, or we don't deal with ocean plastics or climate change directly,
Plastics,
we hope
right?
that one of the things that we can contribute is making sure that the ocean ecosystem, fish populations are healthy and thriving.
That's good. And so I feel like that's good clarity to say, I mean, as consumers, we want to contribute in those other ways and with our money by support companies that are doing the right things as far as the environment and also doing recycling. We want to do all of that, but today we're specifically going to talk about how to choose seafood and fish that's fished appropriately. So let's go into some of those standards. I really know nothing. Like, I know nothing about except what I read on your website. So let's assume that the average listener doesn't really know anything about fishing.
Okay.
Maybe they've done some casual fishing. So educate us about what is appropriate fishing and inappropriate, and what are the right standards.
Sure, absolutely. When it comes to the MSC standard, there's three really high level priorities that we're looking at, and that we're really sort of looking at these fisheries against. One is sustainable fish stocks. So what that means is that the fish that are getting pulled out of the ocean, they're coming from a stock of fish or a population of fish that is in a place where it can repopulate, it is healthy, it will be available in the future. So that's what we mean by sort of the sustainable fish stocks. The second is minimal environmental impact. So what we mean by this is making sure that when fishermen are fishing, they're doing so in a way that isn't creating extraneous damage to the ocean habitat, ocean seafloor. These are really critical habitats, and we want to make sure that the fisheries in our program are not doing anything to damage that. So that's the second one. And then the third one is ensuring that there is a good management plan in place. So what that means is you've got your first and second principle. The third one is really that long-term view to make sure that this fishery is well, managed. It is being looked after by a regional, if it's a council, local government, the national government, whatever it might be. And in the United States, we have really good management practices in place. So we know that a lot of those fisheries are already doing such great work. And so in the United States, the MSC sort of sustainability standards are really third-party verification on top of that. It's like the icing on the cake.
That was great information, and actually, as you're talking, sparked several follow-up questions for me. So one is, when you talk about the environmental impacts of that second principle, what are some examples of things that would be bad fishing practices versus good?
Sure. So we'll start with the bad, and bad fishing practices can mean that the ocean floor is being damaged, that
they're scraping it in some way, like with a big net, or like what would they be doing? I know nothing.
Okay.
Maybe think I've watched Finding Nemo, right?
Well, there are many, many different ways to fish. So lots of different, we're not going to get into gear types today. Okay. But what is important to know is that, ocean habitats are so important. It might be the ocean floor bed, it might be coral habitats, it might be mid-level, and, if we're disrupting any of those in a way where it could have lasting damage, that's what we're trying to avoid. So without going specifically into, gear types or actual practices, making sure that we're not clearing out the bottom, or we're not damaging lots of coral, or, we're just making sure that we're leaving it in a place where it can still be a functional ecosystem.
Like what I'm imagining, like as opposed to an average recreational fisher has a fishing pole, I'm imagining there's some type of big equipment that does these things, and you might be accidentally scooping up plants, and you might accidentally scooping up other life forms that you're not going to eat, and those aren't necessarily surviving that process.
That's exactly right.
So we don't need to know all the super details. That's what you're for. And then the other follow-up question, actually I had one for each one, the stocks. Are there certain fish that we should just never buy? Like, are there certain fish that are like completely, like almost like on the endangered species list that we shouldn't eat?
That's a great question. That's not really something that we really get into. I mean, we of course, we have no species on our list that are on the endangered species list.
Okay. It might be like regional, right? It might be depend where you are.
Definitely. Of course, standards are going to be different in the United States than they are in different parts of the world for this issue. But if a species is endangered, then we need to make sure that doesn't collide with also being considered sustainable.
Right.
this, I think, gets into a whole nother set of issues that is probably a whole nother conversation.
Have a follow-up interview later, yeah. And I apologize, I'm throwing some at you that we didn't discuss ahead because you're coming up as you're answering the questions. The third one about management, you said in the U.S., really MSC is following behind and saying, wow, they're already doing pretty well here. So talk about your work internationally and how things might be different.
Yeah, that's a great question. Our standard is consistent no matter where you are in the world. So what that means is whether you're a fishery here in the United States or you're a fishery in Europe, South Africa, Asia, whatever it might be, they still need to meet those three principles. And that what that means is, it really is the gold standard. So we are making sure that no matter what fishery we're talking about, no matter where you are in the world, we still have very, very high standards for what we consider sustainable. So other countries might have different national or local or regional rules and regulations, but they still, in order to be considered sustainable, need to meet the minimum for those three principles.
So if it has MSC on it and it comes from any country in the world, we can feel good about it.
Absolutely.
And tell us, you want to show us the logo? Let's see the logo and talk about what the consumer needs to look for.
Yeah, absolutely. So what the consumer needs to look for is basically, it's a little blue fish. I'll show you right here. This is a fish oil supplement. And right at the bottom of the package here is the little blue fish. And
it's certified sustainable seafood, MSC, and it's a little fish on the diagonal.
Exactly. I'll show actually another example here. This is another fish oil. Again, little logo here, and just for fun, because we want to make sure that our pets are as healthy for us and aren't creating any other negative impacts on the environment. This is a pet treat. And
oh, how wonderful!
It has the little MSC blue.
What's the label on the front? Is it cat treat? Perlicious.
Yep.
That's awesome. Hey, cat lovers that are watching. So exactly. I wanted to just, I'm glad you showed that. I wanted to share with you my experience last week in the grocery store. I had already known about MSC a while back, but of course got more aware as we were preparing for this. So I'm in the seafood section, and I live in the mountains of upstate South Carolina. So there's some rivers, but there's not, most of the seafood in the grocery store is not super local. It might be from South and North Carolina coast, but there wasn't anyone for me to ask. No one was working in the counter at that time, but I walked through and I didn't see anything in the fresh section that had any kind of label about sustainability. In the frozen section, there was several different things on the front of the packages. No MSC fish though. There was one thing that was Aquastar, forget what it said, and it seemed almost like the brands themselves were giving themselves a label. But then several things did say wild caught, several things said sustainable. I did go down to the canned and packaged tuna and salmon, and I found some with the MSC label that were wild caught. So we, I've already educated some of the people who follow Choose Joyful Health, but this might be new for them. We need them to look for the MSC label. If they can't find it, what should they do? What's the next best? And what kind of labeling is out there, and what should we know about it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, to your first point, the MSC label can really be found in a big variety of stores, and it is on products for every kind of budget. So like you said, you can find it on tuna cans. Those are often, very affordable. Yeah. And then it's all the way up through to fresh fish, frozen fish, and then of course, as I mentioned, supplements, and then in the pet food counter or pet food area. It's also at a variety of stores. So it's in Walmart, it's in Costco, it's in CVS, it's in Giant, and then of course it's in Whole Foods. So we really want to make sustainable seafood available for anyone who wants to make the right choice. And with regards to other programs, there are other programs out there. MSC, what our credibility really is being a third-party program. So while we are the holders of the MSC standard, so those 3 principles that I talked about, we don't actually do any of the assessing, any of the auditing, any of the reviewing. All of that is third-party verified. So we work with organizations who their entire business is to assess fisheries or assess commercial partners or retailers to make sure that they are meeting all of those standards and all of our key performance indicators. And if they meet all the criteria, they meet all those 3 principles and all the key performance indicators beneath that, they can get that check mark, they can put our logo on the product, and then they're considered certified sustainable. But that is not done actually by the Marine Stewardship Council. It's all third party.
Can I tag a question onto that? So just to help make sure I understand it. So when I was studying organic, USDA organic is I guess it's the certification or the label, but the USDA doesn't actually go to the farms and certify that. It's a third party.
Yep.
Usually it could be a nonprofit, could be a for-profit. Clemson University does it here for our area. They can come out and send someone out and they check your farm.
Yep.
Your paperwork first, and then they check your farm, and then I guess then you're able to put the USDA label. So is that a similar analogy?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
And the idea behind that is really, it would be a conflict of interest for us to come in and say, this is our standard, and all these fisheries that are interested in being part of the program, which by the way is a voluntary program. So any fishery can come in and say, we want to do this. We're not choosing the fisheries, they're doing it independently. But it would be a conflict of interest for us to have the standard and then give that standard or give that certification.
Right, and take money. Say, oh, you can pay us to get it, right? You can pay us to get this logo. I actually am super glad you brought that up because I didn't want to ask that, but in my mind I was thinking how does this all work to prevent corruption? And I'm thinking about all over the world, so that's a great clarity. So there's local organizations do the checking, they go and visibly see the place.
Exactly.
Okay, so I learned on your website that a fishery is not just a fishery. It's all of the things that impact it. So just for my education, maybe people will be interested in this as well. Could you educate us about the terms seafood and the terms fishery and the terms shellfish and what's covered under MSC and what's not?
Yeah, that's a great question. It can be a little bit confusing, but effectively, anything that comes out of the sea that is consumed can be considered shellfish, could be considered seafood.
Even kelp or seaweed?
That's exactly right. And we actually have a seaweed standard.
Oh, cool, neat.
And as I'm saying that, I realize I need to place a caveat because there's also a product that is MSC certified that we don't eat, but comes from the ocean, and that is pearls. So we actually have an MSC certified pearl.
That's so cool.
Coming from, I believe, Oceania.
So if someone's looking for an anniversary present, they should ask for an MSC pearl earrings.
Exactly. But it's also, it's also a little confusing because we have lake fish, for example, that is certified. So it's not just the ocean.
Okay.
But anything that comes out that we can consider food or something that comes out of the ocean, like pearl or kelp or seaweed, for example, that can be part of the MSC program.
So tell me why MSC doesn't deal with farmed seafood and fish.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's basically, we're in the business of protecting fish for future generations. That was sort of the impetus of the program. We were really started as a result of the collapse of a fishery. In fact, back in, I believe, the 90s, there was a cod fishery that was heavily fished. And as a result of heavy fishing, it was the stock was overfished. There was concern about collapse, and one of the biggest consumers of the product was Unilever, a multinational company. And they joined together with the WWF and they wanted to make sure that, you know, it would benefit them for this fishery to be healthy. And so together they came up with the standard. They did lots of consultations. They looked at the science, and that's effectively how the MSC was born. So we really were born out of the need to protect seafood and wild fish.
In the wild. Yeah,
Exactly.
I get it. So it's not a judgment that farming fish is a bad idea. It's just saying this is our focus.
Absolutely, exactly. And so we do have a sister organization called the Aquaculture Stewardship Council, the ASC, and they do effectively what we do, but they focus only on farmed seafood, farmed fish.
Yeah, so we discussed that might be a follow-up. And just to clarify for anybody who wasn't sure, WWF is World Wildlife Fund. So
Exactly. Okay, and one thing I would also add to that is, you know, the MSc program is constantly evolving. Yeah. We are really trying to make sure that we're up to date on the latest science. We want to make sure we know, you know, what's changing, you know, on an ecosystem level, on a habitat level, on an ocean level. And so the standard is currently evolving. And that's, I think, again, in addition to third-party verification, one of the strengths of our program is making sure that we're changing along with the changing times. So that's really, really important for us to be able to be credible.
Can the oceans keep up with us? Is there hope? Or are we humans, as my friend calls us, two-leggers, are the two-leggers screwing things up so much that it's... Sometimes I feel overwhelmed. I'll put it that way. Like, I feel like we're doing so much damage to our planet. So give us a global perspective if you can.
Well, I don't think you're alone in thinking that. Let me just say that. You know, the Earth is under tremendous pressure. And what the MSc is really trying to do is trying to be a solution and a real bright light in all of that. And so I think that with programs like the MSc, with programs like the ASC, where we're really setting the standard very high, you know, and really trying to get consumers involved in making decisions for the ocean through their wallet, that's, you know, we really put a lot of hope into that.
Well, that's what I want to do too. I mean, really, in Choose Joyful Health, I'm wanting people to, I always say it's a balance of self-care and service. So if I'm exercising, choosing healthy foods, sleeping well, and blah, 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 I can then go out and be of service in the world. So we really want the same things. We want people to make the right choices and then be able to serve, right? And have hope that it's not too late for the fish and not too late for our planet. So
absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. So kind of back up just a little bit and talk about your search sections of your website and what people can do there.
Our website is a great resource. There's a lot of information on it. However, there's a lot of information on it. So if you don't know, exactly. And so we're actually launching a brand new website that is going to make it a lot easier for consumers and all of your viewers to be able to make it easier to find seafood, find retailers, and get the right information that they need. So right now it's a little bit business heavy and there's a lot going on, but what we really want to do is make it very easy for consumers to digest, make it really easy for them to see, you know, what's in my area, what should I look for. So that's something to stay tuned for. We're very excited for that.
And that's msc.org. Now, so apart from checking out the Future website and always looking for the blue fish when we can, when we're grocery shopping, what about in restaurants?
Yeah, that's a great question. Restaurants are where a lot of consumers are enjoying their seafood.
I get fish when I eat out because it's usually the best thing on the menu.
Exactly. So that is an area where we are definitely involved and trying to get more involved, I would say. One of the things that we're trying to do is make it easier for restaurants to choose sustainable seafood, choose MSC certified seafood. But one of the ways that consumers can really make a difference is if they are asking the questions about like you said, where my seafood's coming from, or, you know, how do I know if this is certified sustainable? The more that restaurants hear these questions, the more likely they are to source those types of things. So
That's great.
yeah, so definitely ask where it's coming from, and we're definitely working on that.
Yeah, sometimes I ask and sometimes I don't, but I really want to be more committed to that. So thank you for that encouragement. Um, I'll try to make a summary and maybe you add to it if I miss anything. It sounds like you know we've got opportunities to make good choices. It's not too late. MSC is leading the way in helping ensure that we do have fish for the long-term health of our planet. And when we go grocery shopping, we should look for the MSC label, the little blue fish. And also we can ask questions at the grocery store. If we don't see that, we can ask about it. And then we can ask in the restaurants and we can mention, you know, I'm looking for food that's sustainably fished. And then any other takeaways that you think we should know as consumers and as just good citizens of the world?
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of it starts with awareness. So the fact that we're having this conversation is, I think, incredibly important, because our viewers can, now that they know, they're able to start looking for it. So they may have been passing the MSC bluefish in their supermarket or wherever it might be many times and not realizing what it is or what it means.
Mm-hmm.
So we're really trying to raise that awareness, and through programs like yours, we can do that. And, you know, really asking for it and really looking out for it is going to make a difference. Once more people start asking for it, then retailers will provide it. They'll be asking to source it from their sources. So, you know, it really is a chain effect. But don't forget, you know, seafood that is certified by the MSC standard is available in a range of stores. So look at your Walmart, go to your Costco, go to your Whole Foods, go to CVS. And again, it's not just in the fresh fish section, it's also frozen, it's in the canned food aisle, canned tuna, and then again, of course, supplements and pet food. So it's available in lots of different areas, so start looking for it in those different areas. And we didn't get to talk about McDonald's, but that's an important one to mention.
Let's talk about McDonald's, and that was something I was really surprised. I searched on your website for restaurants, and I was like, I wonder if there's going to be any in South Carolina, or and there was 7 in the U.S. and McDonald's. So talk about McDonald's.
McDonald's is an important one. It's a huge, obviously, multinational company, and all of the fish in their Filet-O-Fish is 100% certified MSC sustainable. So that's really exciting, and they are sourcing Alaska pollock. So it's from Alaska. It's right here in the U.S., and they are one of the first fisheries to get certified, actually. And it's great because it means that when you get a Filet-O-Fish at any McDonald's anywhere in the world, you can feel really good about that. And I know McDonald's is very committed to making sure that their customers are eating sustainable seafood.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful because most of us think we have to go to an expensive restaurant, and sometimes it's not the case. So thank you for reminding me to touch on that.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's really everyone in the United States that's anywhere near McDonald's is very, very close to sustainable seafood.
Who knew? Now, I do have to say, for the people following Choose Joyful Health and 5-Star Eating, we're going to try to stay away from the fried stuff, right? So, you know, so maybe they'll make one grilled later down the road, or a little patty or something that's not fried. But
there you go.
Hey, if you're going to have it, that's good to know. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much. I learned a lot.
I'm glad you were able to find this fruitful, and you know, I had a lot of fun speaking with you, and I hope that your students also find this very informative. So it's been really great. Thank you, Joan.
Thank you, and we'll look for the little blue fish. That's the takeaway. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jackie.
Thank you, Joan.